Hi everybody, this is Brian Budd and this is Simply Budd, and I'm here today to talk about something that's on
Magic
all of
tricks.
our minds here. Of course, why our generation has stopped having kids. This is not about my generation, which is of course the Gen Xer. I'm more of a millennial Xer, like a Malexer. I don't know. But anyways, let's take a look at this from channel name is Andre Jakich. I think he does stuff for Fox. Should be interesting. Let's take a look.
Aside, here's the really crazy part. No one seems to agree on what's really causing this decline or even what we should be doing about it. Last year, the US fertility rate hit an all time low of 1.62 births per woman. That's the lowest birth rate since the government started tracking this statistic in the 1930s. But back in the 50s, the fertility rate was about 3.7 births per woman, and you need at least 2.1 births just to keep the population steady. And it's not just the US dealing with this problem, it's the entire world. Countries
Yeah, I mean, the United States is not as bad as like Japan, South Korea, um, China when they got rid of the one child policy. The one child policy that was enacted in 1976 was a huge mistake, and it will lead in the loss of probably like half of their population by 2100. India and Africa, some parts of Africa, Africa will probably be the largest continents probably by 2100. It won't be America or Europe. It'll actually be India, and that's because they have a replacement rate that's a lot higher, obviously. Continuing.
like Japan, Italy, Germany, they're all seeing similar drops. Japan, for example, recorded its lowest number of births ever, and Italy has actually declared a national state of emergency because their birth rate is so low. But it gets even worse.
Yeah, that's why they're importing in the third world. But unfortunately, they don't have the same values that Italy or Japan does.
When you zoom out and you look at the global picture. According to the Pew Research Center, population growth is projected to flatline by the year 2100. And in some countries, it's already happening. South Korea's fertility rate, for example, dropped to 0.72 in 2022, the lowest in the world. To put that in perspective, that's less than half of what's needed to maintain a stable population. So if this trend keeps on going, South Korea could see its population cut in half in just a couple generations. So the other question is, what's causing people to have less kids? And this is where things get a little tricky. Some argue that it's because women have more freedom and more women are pursuing higher education and careers. And as a result, they're waiting longer to have kids, or they're choosing not to have them at all. And some people say it's the rise of dinks or dual income, no kids households. Some people argue
Ah, anyways, the dinks or whatever and stuff like that. But yeah, I do see that feminism and the end of the dollar was a main reason for that. I don't think it was just the women. It goes back to this guy back on August 15th, 1971, when he got rid of the gold standard. Sure will, Richard. Sure it will. Sure it will, Dick. Thanks, Dick. Actually, it wasn't him. So, like I said, I think that had a lot to do with it before then. One salary can basically bring home the bacon. You can raise a family on one salary. I think it's just impossible today. With that being said, and the rise of dinks and stuff like that, I think I can understand that point, but also too, from a moral standpoint, a moral standpoint, I would say that if you don't have enough people paying into the system, how are you going to have people replace it? You're going to be a drain on the treasury, and that's why debt's going to be hitting what $40 trillion in September. Just saying.
It's the decline of religion or the decline of fertility rates thanks to the chemicals and pesticides that's in our food. But regardless of what the real reason is, the outcome's pretty bad. And as someone who wants to be a parent someday, I just want to know what's causing this to happen, and I also want to know how expensive is it to really become a parent, and how much is it going to cost our future if we stop becoming parents? There's some really interesting data behind all of this that I want to share with you, so let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well, come for the finance, and stay for the magic of babies. One of the questions I had is, why is no one having kids today as compared to just 20 years ago? And the truth is, there's a lot of different reasons. One US study asked people between the ages of 18 to 49 why they didn't want to have kids, and 56% said they just didn't want to. The other half said it was for a variety of different reasons, like medical, financial, having no partner, age, climate change, or their partner just didn't want to have kids, and generally.
I mean, we've always had economic issues. We've always had medical issues. We've always had financial issues. No partner, age, and yeah, I get that. Yeah, because people are having kids later. Because obviously we live in a very infantilized society where you have guys and women basically being, their favorite anime character for Halloween and not really growing up. Sorry, not trying to knock you people that do anime, but I'm just saying. And the other stuff, climate change, the environment, we've already had disasters, hundreds, thousands of years ago. Partner doesn't want to have kids. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but a lot of these things, they've been here in memorandum. So some don't want to, some don't. What gives? Well, let's take a look.
The state of the world. And one really surprising reason that kept showing up throughout all the different studies that I looked at across all the different countries was that trouble finding a partner was at 15% of the people surveyed, which is really weird considering the average person spends almost an hour a day on their dating apps. It's now a lot easier than ever before to meet people thanks to apps like Tinder.
Ah! Oh boy, we're gonna get into this conversation. Oh boy, we're gonna go back to uh, female hypergamy and dating hyperdynamics. Um, in 2012, the way people met online surpassed pretty much either college coworkers or friends of family, or the top ways people met before. Back in the early 20s, 1910s, it used to be family members would arrange it. But now um, he's saying, "Oh well, it's unavailable partners or whatever." They're an hour on dating apps. Well, yeah, because women typically are hypergamous, so they're going to go after the top tier men. Unfortunately, there's not enough top tier men to go around. I mean, if you want a guy in the top 5%, basically a lot of women, unfortunately, are going to have to share him because he's going to play the field. And then you have these women here that are going through these dating apps that are basically selecting the Chads and the Tyrones. And then you have beta bucks that clean up the slop later on. But I digress.
POF, Bumble, eHarmony, and apps like that. But people also say, despite how easy it is to get a date, it's becoming a lot harder to find a partner for the long term to have kids with, and one of the reasons why is because of the very same technology that was supposed to help us. In fact,
Yeah, Netflix and chill. Situationships.
Pew Research found that 75% of the people they polled said it was either very or somewhat difficult to find someone in the past year, either because they had trouble approaching them or that person didn't meet their expectations, all of which led to a burnout for a variety of different reasons that I'm sure most of us experienced at some point, like being ghosted and or lied to, rejected, feeling like you're having a repetitive conversation all the time. But what's interesting to me about all these studies is that these apps, which ultimately are just tools that were meant to bring us closer together, are also the tools that keep us far apart.
Plenty of Fish doesn't want
I think
you.
so much of that.
Hold on, let's shut him up for a second. Plenty of Fish doesn't want you to meet somebody. Tinder doesn't want you to meet somebody because they'll lose their monthly subscription base because they make money off of you trying to find a partner. So they have like Tinder Platinum, they have Tinder whatever Gold. you're paying $100 a month, $499 a month for access. I mean, really? My parents, they met probably at a bar in like Slavic Village back in 1972 or whatever. It's like now, it's like, that same woman would probably be like, "Eh, he's only 5'10". But anyways, I digress.
is because social media isn't real. It's surface level marketing, and it's hard to find authentic connections when it just seems like someone better is just a swipe away, leading to pretty grim
Exactly.
statistics like
FOMO.
1 in 5 people lying about their age, 1 in 7 lying about their income, 1 in 8 lying about their job, all of which has led to a decline in mental health, leaving people feeling 3 times more stressed than people who don't use these dating apps at all.
You can go on 3 dates with someone and have an amazing time and then never hear from them again.
A lot of the times apps lead us to undervalue people that we'd actually like in real life and overvalue people we
Reason. Money. I wanted to know, how much does it cost to become a parent? And I found that raising a child in the US is expensive. Really expensive. It costs about $300,000 to raise a child to age 17, and that doesn't include education. If you factor in college, that number jumps to over $400,000. Now, if you don't want to spend $400,000 raising a child, I don't blame you. And if instead you want to spend a lot less money on growing your career, especially in the YouTube space, then I've got something that can really help you out with today's sponsor, TubeMagic. And with TubeMagic, you get
Anyways, let's go past this. But
today, it's going to save you a lot of time and big things of 17 years, which is about the same.
so what he's basically saying, the cost of the kid is up. And then what I would say is that that is true to an extent. Let me take a look here. Hey Siri, what is the cost of childcare average in the United States? Okay, average annual cost of childcare is $3,800 per kid. Couples on average for 2 kids is $11,000. So if you take $11,000, for example, and you times that by 18, there's $200,000 right there. So I think that a lot of this stuff is getting lost in the sauce. Yes, you do have to have, certain things in place. Yeah, middle level income, like here in Ohio, just to be you and another person, one person working with one child. Minimum basic requirements, house payment, mortgage, college fund. You're looking at about $142,000 a year gross in the Cleveland area. Now, if you go to like California, times that by four. So it just depends on where you live. If you live in a rich richer area, obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive. Like, and I know in Silicon Valley, I think it's like $1 million a kid. But like, if you go to Mississippi, where it's really poor, it might be half of $400,000.
Same as investing $2,000 a month means that instead of having a kid, you could end up with $810,000. Another study found that parents raising just 2 children until they're the age of 22 would cost them an average of $750,000, including the cost of everything, factoring education and a bigger house for a bigger family. But that's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is that those studies were done between the years 2014 and 2017. So factoring inflation since 2017 means that the new estimate would be a lot closer to $1 million. And in the US, 64% of young adults who are not having
It's
as many
like
kids as they'd like to
1.5
say
million.
that it's childcare costs that are the major reason
Yep.
why. Childcare costs are growing at almost couples or Gen Z card debt. And when I look at the overall big picture of how much the world has changed its mind about having kids in the last 20 years, it blew my mind. Back in 2003, 83% of people said they wanted to be a parent. Fast forward to 2024, and that number dropped to 51%. In Canada, the numbers tell a similar story. In 2001, only 7% of Canadians said they didn't want kids. But by 2022, that number jumped to 34%. So these numbers show that there's a massive cultural shift in how younger generations are thinking about their future. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're just sitting there looking at the tea leaves. They're saying there is no future. The boomers stole it from us. That's why I've always said it. I said you're going to see the Gen Z revolution, like you saw in Nepal. You'll see in the United States as well. I think that we're overdue for one because I think that I'm not calling for that, but I think you're going to see that because I think the younger generation is sick and tired of hearing boomer populations basically say that, well, if you just didn't have your avocado toast and your latte, you'd buy a house like I did. Back in 1979, I bought my first house for a Big Mac and a blowjob.
In a world where job security is no longer guaranteed, where owning a home seems like a dream for so many people, and where potentially the food we consume is impacting our fertility, and it's no wonder more and more people are questioning whether they want to bring a child into this world. So the next question I had is, So what? It seems like a personal choice whether to have kids or not, and if some people can't afford to or they don't want to have kids, then we should all respect it, and I still think that. But I also wanted to know, what happens if this trend continues? What happens if more and more people start to think this way? And it turns out there's some really interesting effects that start to happen to the global economy. And here's what happens first. As the birth rate declines, less young people will enter the workforce, and that makes it harder for companies to find employees. And this could lead to what's called a labor shortage. And Japan is a really good example of this. In Japan, nearly 30% of the population is now over the age of 65, with only about 2 working age.
Yeah, I think the average age here in the United States is like 47, 46. So, I mean, Japan's like in the early 50s. I mean, when I was born, the average age of the United States per person was 26 and a half. You just can't do it. And demographically, until, I hate to say it, but until the boomers die off, you won't see an actual booming economy until that happens. So you're probably going to be 2026. The oldest boomers are now, what, 80 years old? So I'd say 2040, 2045, you'll start seeing a turnaround.
People supporting each retiree. Now, to put that in perspective, a healthy balance would be around 4 workers for each retiree. But when there's only 2 workers for every retired person, the financial burden on the working population has.
Yeah, they're going to increase Social Security. So, just to give you an example on this, how couples met 1995 versus 2017. So, in 1995, basically through friends, bar, restaurant, coworker, through family, that typically was your major 4. And around 2012, man, that's when it all changed. And now it's not that's 2017. It's now 60%. That was in 2017. It's almost 10 years later. Teen boys versus teen girls, how social media negatively affects you and their lifestyle. Social media negatively affects their mental health, confidence, and sleep. So, yeah, I mean, all this is affecting, and there's a big effect on that. And yeah, what this guy's saying is true. But just to wrap up, I think that the biggest thing I would say is a lot of it's just economics. I think most people do want to have children. A lot of men do want to pass on their seed to the next generation. I think it's just that a lot of guys find it almost impossible, the ones that are logical. Or it could just be an idiocracy, just fast forward backwards, like Mike Judge in Idiocracy, where basically the very low IQ people continue to breed while the higher educated people die out. I'm Brian Budd, and this is Brian Budd, and oh my gosh, I'm Brian Budd, and this is Simply Budd, and it was wonderful talking to you today. Take care.